Hello, everyone. It is great to have you here with us. I'm Anne Griffin. Um, you probably have seen maybe like my one other video on this YouTube channel that really is addressing like emerging tech AI and what's going on, and how that's impacting the world. I've actually partnered with Dr. Denise Turley, who's here with us today, because today we're actually talking about how businesses are choosing to wait and see about whether they want to integrate AI into their business. And, we're hearing all these headlines of people that are jumping into AI. It makes it sound like everyone's using AI. It makes people feel like they're super behind in AI. And that's not always the case. And so again, I'm Anne Griffin. I'm a product person who also works in AI. I also have my own AI strategy consulting company. And Dr. Denise Turley, would you like to introduce yourself to our amazing audience?
Yes. Hi, my name is Denise Turley, and I work as the Vice President of Technology for a large member organization. And I'm also the Assistant Professor of Business. So I love education. I love technology. I love being able to combine the both and bring AI literacy to people. So I have a deep passion for that. And also, trying to use technology to provide opportunities for disadvantaged groups.
That's awesome. You are amazing. I met Dr. Turley at a AI and finance summit in Washington, D.C. And I was so blown away by her talk. And we were able to meet and we were like, oh my gosh, let's collaborate on, not just articles, but articles that actually help educate businesses. And that is one, I mean, she doesn't just educate businesses, but like as someone where she is really great at taking these complex topics and breaking them down, and understanding what is keeping these business leaders up at night. I was like, we have to partner. Let's do something together. Partly actually is like more so like her idea. And I was like, oh my God, absolutely yes. But that I'll just say she is super amazing. And so we're going to get started because we partnered together on this article about these businesses that are waiting a little bit longer before they jump in. And I know you work, as part of a bigger organization that supports businesses of all sizes in the US. And so you have unique insights on what businesses are really thinking about the tech trends and AI. You've talked about not all businesses are ready. And so why is being too early in the AI space something that businesses are avoiding right now?
Yeah. So I think it's nuanced, probably depending on the business size and what your industry or focus is. There may be different reasons, but some of the reasons that I hear, some of the reasons that we've seen in some of the research is that, some just are still like, is this real or is this hype, right? There's this wait and see because they're not convinced that this is going to be as transformative as some are making out. So I think that's one. And I did hear that specifically in a conversation that I had with another tech leader of a large organization. They just felt that they weren't compelled to move too swiftly to adopt. So I think they're aware that there's a large cost to this. It isn't necessarily cheap, particularly if you're in a larger organization. There's an impact to your budget that maybe you haven't planned for yet. There are some that we hear that they're aware that there's this rapid pace of change, and there's also the potential that it doesn't last, right? What if it is like starts up really fast, but then it just burns out and it was nothing, and I got on board and it was all for nothing because a year from now it's gone, right? People sometimes talk about, blockchain and how that was supposed to be a thing and was going to blow up, and it just hasn't happened that way yet. We also hear from some businesses that they just don't know how to get started. That's often in like small to medium sized businesses, but large too, where maybe they don't have the same financial resources to get started. They also don't have the same IT resources to get started. And they're just unsure what use case would make sense to get started here. And then I think there's also the security concern, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
I don't know. Do I want to put all my data in there? Do I want to interact with that tool? There's still a number of people that are kind of fearful of that. And as they should be, right? We should move forward cautiously. But I think those are some of the reasons that I'm hearing and seeing, about why businesses might be opting to move a little bit more slowly on moving into that space.
That makes so much sense. And as someone who worked in the blockchain space, I'm very familiar with businesses, having been very gung ho to being like, never mind, rip it all out. And I know like AI, I think as people feel it's here to stay, but I think to your points, they're not sure it's needed in everything and which parts are here to stay. Cause it's kind of like the .com bubble where
Yeah.
not everything ended up working out. So I think everything you said when we think about things like blockchain and the original .com bubble, like makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Goldman Sachs actually recently released a report that, you're thinking that's a really large bank. They would love to, save money on, all these people who were doing analysis for them, all this other stuff. But the report actually said along the lines of what you mentioned about the costs, where generative AI is too expensive in their own words without a killer use case. And I'd love for us to address the two things in that statement. Do you think businesses that aren't convinced by the use cases being shown and pitched to them? And then the second part being, do you think businesses are aware and turned off by the costs of using like the APIs from these generative AI companies, since especially at scale, it can get pretty costly?
Yeah. It gets very costly very quickly. I think some of the surface level use cases that make sense are things like, well, go ahead and implement ChatGPT and your employees can just ask questions. They can be more efficient, more effective in their work. And I think that that's true. There's definitely some time savings there, but it doesn't necessarily directly correlate to cost savings or an uptick in revenue or an uptick necessarily in increased productivity, that organizations can really then translate that to ROI and justify the investment. And as we said before, the investment is huge. If you imagine it's $15 or $30 per person per month, and if you have a large organization, a couple of thousand people, that really adds up to several $100,000 in your budget that, as an IT leader or even somebody managing your finances, you need to be able to justify. So I think that is very real. Some of the use cases, aren't maybe as convincing for some organizations because perhaps they're too general. And many really need to be able to relate to a use case that I'm going to invest my time, my energy, my money in solving for. We see a lot of very popular use cases right now, right? Which is a chatbot for customer service, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just tweeted about this.
Did you?
Yes.
And so that might be one of the number one use case scenarios that people try to sell LLMs on. What do you think? You think it's up there? Top three?
I think it's up there. And I think it's interesting because some of these sites, you go there, it's your first time looking at it and it takes over like 1/4 of the screen immediately. And it's not even prompting you with something that is what you are thinking when you first come to this site. And I think it's very interesting. And I could see why businesses might be like, do we really need a chatbot or do we really need that many chatbots?
That's another good point too, because, sometimes the chatbots aren't that great.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that and I know and other people know that are in the tech space is that demos often are well crafted. They've got many different practice ones. It's a very narrow use case, a very narrow data set. And so it works perfectly, right?
Perfect.
And so we tend to buy into that hype because we're like, yes, I want the magic of AI solving everything for me. And then it just doesn't necessarily end up working out that way, in practicality. And so I imagine some organizations, some tech leaders may not have implemented because they've been down this road before, right? And they know how technology is. And so they might be a little bit more
Yeah.
cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that's coming up now outside of chat, but hasn't really hit the mainstream yet, are like AI agents, where they're more so performing actions rather than doing chat. And so I'm actually taking a course on this right now, and I'm going to build, hopefully, build a couple of my own pretty simple use cases. But I think
Yeah.
that's like the new thing that's coming up.
Yeah, we've been doing that at my organization for a little while now. And that's because we were early adopters in the Gen AI space. So
It's awesome.
we did the chatbots and stuff, and now we've moved on to agents and chaining agents together because we're working on more complicated use cases.
Oh,
So, when something's more complicated, you want to break it down into smaller tasks. And so we might have multiple agents that are handing off the task to each other. So it's really cool stuff and really great potential.
awesome. Awesome. So yeah, that's amazing that you guys are kind of early on that curve. And, it sounds like you guys are early adopters, but that's not always the case. I'm really curious, where are most businesses with AI overall in terms of their technical infrastructure and also progress in leveraging AI in their business? There's so much talk about generative AI, but do you think, you know, this is like this is like the best solution for them? Like, where are they in their own journey of progress? Because I feel like a lot of them missed that machine learning train. I'm curious, like, what you've seen out there in the business world.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I feel like I'm in a little AI bubble. If I'm online or in LinkedIn or something, I see so many people talking about AI. It can feel like, wow, AI is everywhere. Everyone's doing it, but that's not really the case. And when I get out and I talk to people, if I go to conferences and I start talking to the people who are in the space at organizations, most are really still very early adopters, right? They're just dipping their toes in the water. Many haven't done anything. They might be setting up like a governance structure or an AI